Hey everyone, welcome to the second workshop in our Grammar Bootcamp series. For those of you that have already seen the first one, it was on recognizing the difference between verbs and verbals. In this workshop, we are going to focus on the simple and continuous tenses, how to create them, and when to use them. But before we do that, we're going to do a very brief overview of all of the tenses. And then once we've done that, we will focus on the simple and the continuous tenses. First of all, you need to know there are 12 verb tenses that show time, plus there are verbs that show possible time. That's a lot for those of us that think in terms of past, present, future. It can be a little overwhelming. And you may say, how am I ever going to learn to use those? But we are going to put them into categories, and we are going to look at them one set at a time, one category at a time. But even before we do that, I just want to take a very simple verb, sit. And those of you that did last week's workshop, you'll see to sit, which is the infinitive form of the verb sit. But now let's look at how this one little three-letter verb, how many different forms can be created with this to create all of those different verb tenses. We've got I sat alone yesterday. I sit with my friend most days. I will sit with you tomorrow. I was sitting when class started. I am sitting now. I will be sitting when the bell rings. I had sat for an hour when the bell rang. I have sat for an hour. I will have sat for an hour when the bell rings. I want to stop for a moment and let you know that the words in blue, those are the complete verb. I had been sitting for an hour when the bell rang. I have been sitting for an hour. I will have been sitting for an hour when the bell rings. I could sit. I should sit. I might sit. I could have sat, I should have sat, I might have sat. I could be sitting, I should be sitting, I might be sitting. I might have been sitting, I could have been sitting, I should have been sitting. That's a lot. Feeling a little overwhelmed? That's okay. Again, we are going to break them down into very specific categories, and we are going to examine each category one at a time. So take a deep breath, because here we go. We're going to put these different verb tenses into the categories they belong in. Our simple tenses have a past, a present, and a future. And here are some examples. I sat, I sit, I will sit. So for your simple tenses, you've got three verbs: sat, sit, and will sit. For your continuous tenses, you also have a past, a present, and a future. And those verbs look like this: I was sitting, I am sitting, I will be sitting. Now, I want you to notice that so far we only have two verbs that are a single word. The simple past, I sat. The simple present, I sit. And just a heads up, every other verb that we look at is going to be more than one word. So I want you to start thinking in terms of the complete verb. What is the complete verb? Because it's really important that you include all of the necessary words to create the verb that is going to represent the time that you are trying to convey in your sentence. Remember what we talked about last week, Joey? Verbs tell time. And so we put these different words together to create the very best representation of the time that we are trying to convey in the sentence that we're writing. The perfect tenses, again, past, present, and future. I had sat, I have sat, I will have sat. And then your perfect continuous tenses, past, present, and future. I had been sitting, I have been sitting, I will have been sitting. And notice we even have one that is 1, 2, 3, 4 words. The complete verb will have been sitting takes 4 words put together in a very specific formula to create this particular verb. And now we tend to think about time as past, present, and future. And if you'll look at the 4 tenses we've got so far, the simple, the continuous, the perfect, and the perfect continuous, we've got our past, our present, and future. But as human beings, we don't just live in the past, present, and future, because our minds are also capable of creating abstract ideas, possible time. As human beings, we can think about possibility. And we also are in situations of uncertainty. We're not sure whether something happened or did not happen. We're not sure if something will happen or will not happen. We're not sure if something is happening or is not happening. We're also able to dream of alternate realities. And we're going to be touching on that in this workshop, and then the next workshop on the perfect and the perfect continuous tenses, we're going to do a super deep dive into those abstract ideas of time. But we are going to touch upon them here briefly, and we're going to look at what we call possibility or uncertainty. In other words, not real time. And we do those by using modals like could, should, might, and may. And here are some examples. I could sit. Well, I'm not really sitting, but I could, right? I should sit. Well, I'm not really sitting. It's not like I sit with my friends every day. I should sit with my friends, right? So that's an alternate reality. That's not really happening. And yet we need to be able to express and convey and communicate the different realms of possibility that we also want to communicate with other people, whether it's in our speaking or in our writing. I might be sitting, I could have sat, I should have sat, I might have sat. Again, there's possibility. I might have or I might not have. I could have been sitting, I should have been sitting, I might have been sitting. You'll have to figure that out, right? Okay, so there's some examples. And if you're unfamiliar with modals, I'm sure you use them in your speaking all the time and in your writing. Consult what I like to call our modern day oracle, i.e. the internet. And it's very easy to type in modals, M-O-D-A-L-S, in English. And that way you can get a list of the modals. And then you can also type in and look for examples of how they're used to do a little further understanding of how these helping verbs could, should, might, may, how they work to create either possible time, not real, or the uncertainty of what happened or was in the state of being. Any questions so far, Joey?
No, it's a lot of information, but I'm taking it in.
It is a lot. And keep in mind that with this video, with this workshop being recorded, you can go back and watch it again and again, and you can pause it if you need to write things down, or I encourage you also to practice writing sentences. Like on this screen, you'll see all the sentences I've written. When you go back and look at it the second and maybe even the third time, you can pause it and then practice writing some of your own sentences that express your own reality of time and of the possibility of time, and also the uncertainty that we all experience as human beings from time to time, to use the word time. All right. Any other questions, Joey, before we move on?
No, good.
All right. So let's start with looking at our simple tenses. So for our simple tenses, we've got I sit for the present, I sat for the past, I will sit for the future, and then possibility and uncertainty, I should sit, I might sit, I could sit, I may sit, and I would sit. Now, what I want you to notice, Joey, is when we create possible time or uncertain time, we use the basic form of the verb sit, and we simply put the modal in front of it. So it doesn't change. It doesn't change to sat, and you don't put should, will, sit, right? So you simply go with the verb sit, and then you put the appropriate modal in front of it. So now that we've looked at the simple tenses, when and how should we use them? Well, we want to use the simple present. There are two times to use the simple present. I sit, or you sit, or she sits. And if you're curious, Joey, and those of you that are watching the recording, is when do I use sit and when do I use sits? I encourage you to come back for the workshop that's going to be on subject-verb agreement. Okay, subject-verb agreement lets us know when we change that basic verb form to make sure that it matches our subject. But right now, we're going to just be looking at verb tense. So we use this simple present, number one, when something is happening right at the present moment, or when something happens regularly. And this using it regularly is the most common. I sit with my friends every day during lunch. I sit with my friends every day during lunch. So when that is something that is happening on a regular basis, out of this present moment, it's happening on a regular basis. We're going to use the simple past when something happened in the past that is finished. I sat with my friends yesterday during lunch. We're going to use the simple future when an action will take place in the future. I will sit with my friends during lunch tomorrow. Very simple little formulas for your simple tenses. You've got one word for the present, one word for the past, and for the future, you simply put the word will in front of your base form. I will sit with my friends during lunch tomorrow. But with these simple tenses, we also have possibility. So let's take a look at some of those. I should sit with my friends. That's not happening in real time. It's not like I sit with my friends every day during lunch, but it's a possibility. This is something it's actually not happening in real time. I would sit with my friends if I didn't have homework, right? I could sit with my friends. Don't know if I'm going to or not. I could sit by myself. I might sit with my friends tomorrow. Now, what is the difference between I will sit with my friends tomorrow and I might sit with my friends tomorrow? Joey, what do you think is the difference there?
I think will means it's going to happen.
Yep.
Whereas should, it's a possibility.
Absolutely. When I say I will sit with my friends during lunch tomorrow, that's my simple future tense, right? And there's that idea of certainty. This is going to happen. But let me ask you a question, Joey. Here we are as human beings in our present moment, projecting certainty onto tomorrow. And we live in the present moment as if we're 100% sure that this is going to happen tomorrow. But is that true?
No, something could happen. Maybe lunch is.
Absolutely. And this is one of the interesting paradoxes about being a human being. And it's also fascinating to me that the way we create verb tenses reflects the paradox of this aspect of our humanity. And the paradox of this aspect of our humanity is that we live in our present moment as if we are certain of that future. But at the exact same time, deep down inside of us, we know that there is no certainty about tomorrow. But we act as if we're certain, right? And that is the paradox of being human. And that's why when we are in this present moment and we need to pull forth that certainty, we need to put aside for a moment that uncertainty of that knowledge that we don't have any guarantee that there even will be a tomorrow. We put that aside and we act as if we are certain, because that's what it takes. We wouldn't, if we are immobilized by uncertainty, then we're not going to do anything tomorrow, right? So we have to put the uncertainty aside and project certainty about tomorrow. And that is the paradox of our common humanity. And our verb tenses reflect that. Because with our other modals like should and would and could, we don't create a whole set of tenses for could. We don't have a past, a present, a future, a could, a would, a should tenses, right? We lump all of those other modals together and we don't give them their own set of tenses. But for the future, we do. We create a whole set of future tenses. And that is the part of our humanity that is saying, I am going to act on the certainty of tomorrow. By the same token, the formula we use to create those future tenses is the exact same formula as the other modals. I would sit, I will sit. Same formula, different modal. So that part of it, the formula we use to create, is the part of the paradox that is the uncertainty. But the fact that we create future tenses is the part of the paradox that says, no, but I am going to act as if I am certain, because that's the only way I can make my life better. So that's a very philosophical thing I just threw out there, but I want you all to reflect on that. I'm hoping that what that does is it does spark you to think and to recognize how many times grammar and sentence structure is a reflection of our human experience. It's not like this is me living my life and here is grammar. This thing's totally disconnected from how I live. You will find, if you really think about it, you'll see some very strong connections with the way we structure sentences and the way we experience life as human beings. Any questions about that?
Yeah.
I know that was a lot, but I like to throw a little philosophy in there every now and then. So let's move on to our second category, the continuous tenses. Now, the continuous tenses, all of them are more than one word. And we create them by using a very simple formula. A form of the verb be plus the present participle. And if you'll remember from our last workshop on verbs and verbals, your present participle, that's your ing word. That word that cannot be a verb by itself, it always has to have a helping verb with it. And to create the continuous tenses, it is a form of be plus the present participle that equals the continuous tenses. And I want to take a moment here, because I often say consult the oracle, i.e. the internet, but these continuous tenses have another name that you might sometimes see used on the internet or even in textbooks, and that is the progressive tenses. I want you to know the continuous tenses and the progressive tenses are the exact same thing. They're just two different words that mean the exact same thing. Progressive, continuous. So don't be confused by that. Okay. Does that make any questions about that? So let's look at our forms of the verb be. Be, am, is, are, was, were, being. Remember last week when I told you every single verb has a present participle? Well, being is the present participle for the verb be. And remember when I told you that every single verb has a past participle? Been is the past participle form of the verb be. It's very important that you recognize all of these verb forms and recognize all of them as forms of the verb be. The verb be is the most complicated of all of the verbs, and it has more forms. Look at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There is no other verb in the English language that has this many different forms. And now let's look at some examples of our present participles, those ing words. And these are just a few of them. Every single verb has a present participle, but here are a few of them: laughing, crying, smiling, sighing, resting, running, walking, playing, studying, succeeding. So again, our formula for creating the continuous tenses, it is one of these verb forms plus the present participle equals the continuous or progressive tenses. Now let's see, here are some examples. I am sitting. Am sitting, that's one of those verb forms. I was sitting. I will be sitting. And then we also have our possibility or our uncertainty. I should be sitting. I might be sitting. I could be sitting, and I may be sitting. I would be sitting. So with your continuous present, for if I am talking about myself, I'm going to use the verb form am for the present. But Joey, if I'm going to make a sentence about you, I'm going to say you are sitting. So that am is going to change to are. And if I'm talking about someone outside of the conversation between you and me, it's going to be she is sitting. They are sitting. And so it's really important that you memorize those forms of be and you begin to practice using the correct form when you're writing your sentences. And all of that, the difference between am sitting, are sitting, is sitting, that again is subject verb agreement. You choose that verb form, am, is, or are, depending upon the subject. And we will do a deeper dive into that when we do our workshop on subject verb agreement. I'm just giving you a little heads up that this is complicated with these forms of be. And so memorizing them, consulting the oracle to see which one is used in sentences, practice using the different verb forms of be with different subjects, and begin to get comfortable with that idea of how changeable and complex this particular verb is. Any questions?
No.
Okay.
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay. But now when and how do we use the continuous verb tenses? Because there are specific times. We're going to use the continuous present when something is in the process of happening right now or is being planned for the future. And here are some examples. I am cooking dinner right now. So I am in the process. Unlike the simple, I cook dinner every night. Right now, right at this moment, I am in the process of cooking dinner. But I can also use this continuous present if right at this moment, I am planning to do something in the future. Right? So I am cooking dinner for my family tonight. Now that's not happening at the present moment. That's going to happen in the near future, but at the present moment, I am planning. So I could also say I am planning to cook dinner for my family tonight if I wanted to do that. And both of those forms express the same idea. Questions?
I think I got it.
Yeah. Again, practice, practice, practice writing your own sentences. We're going to use the continuous past when something that was in the process of happening in the past was interrupted by something else. I was cooking dinner when he came home. It doesn't make sense to just say I was cooking dinner last night, because remember our simple past, when something is already completed, I cooked dinner last night, right? But if during that process of cooking, there was some kind of interruption, then we're going to move to the continuous past. I was cooking dinner last night when he came home. Or I was cooking dinner when he came home last night. You see, you've got to have that understanding of there was a process and something happened. Questions? Okay. We're going to use the continuous future to indicate that something will be going on in the future when something else happens in the future. Getting a little bit more, I know, so we're getting a little bit more complicated. Remember what I told you in the last workshop? Time is a very complex idea, and in our lives, we live life, not just one thing happens and then something else happens and then something else happens and then something else happens. We can have 3 or 4 things going on at the same time, right? Or things happening when other things start happening while we're thinking about something that might happen in the future and reflecting upon something that happened in the past. All of that can be happening at the same moment. Right? We've all had that experience, right? I was sitting in class when I realized that I should have turned off the stove before I left because, and now see, already I've moved into different verb tenses in just that one sentence, in just that one idea. So we're breaking these verbs down into their individual pieces, understanding that even in doing that, we're having interruptions and we're thinking about other things, even at its most basic level. And that's why verbs are complicated, and that's why students and other writers struggle with verbs. They are not easy, they are not simple, because what they're representing is not simple and not easy. All right, so let's take a look at what this looks like. I will be cooking dinner when he gets home. Projecting into the future, I will be in the process of doing this thing when he gets home. Something will be going on in the future when something else happens. Does that make sense, Joey? Okay.
That makes sense. I see the difference.
Mm-hmm. And we're going to use a modal with the continuous tenses when indicating possibility or uncertainty. I should be cooking dinner. Well, here I am, right? I could be cooking dinner, but I decided to go shopping. He might be coming home late tonight. I would be cooking dinner, but the stove caught on fire. I'll let you just sit with those for a few minutes, and Joey, and see if you have any questions. You see, I do want to point out that these other modals, notice that there is no certainty in any of them. They are all either an alternate reality or possibility. Unlike the will, which is also a modal that indicates certainty. All right, so let's do a little review and then we're going to do some practice, okay? Let's look at our simple tenses again. Simple past is used to indicate an action in the past that has been completed. The simple present is used to indicate something that as of the present moment happens regularly. The simple future is used to indicate certainty about something that will happen in the future. The continuous tenses. The continuous past is used to indicate something was ongoing in the past when something else happened. I was cooking dinner when he came home. Continuous present is used to indicate something that is happening in the present moment or will be happening in the near future. I am cooking dinner. I am cooking dinner tonight for my family. Continuous future is used to indicate something that will be ongoing in the future when something else happens in the future. I will be cooking dinner when his plane lands. And then possibility is indicated by using the best fitting modal to indicate the possibility of something happening in the past, present, or future. The use of modals indicates that there is no certainty of the happening. Questions before we go on to practice? Okay. All right. Which of the following sentences does the best job of indicating that as of the present moment, something happens regularly?
B,
I go to the store on Saturdays. Yay. And which tense is that? Do you remember, Joey? I go.
present,
But is it simple or continuous?
simple,
Excellent. Let's look at A. I went to the store yesterday. Can you identify the verb?
past, simple, simple past,
Simple past. Good. What about C? I am going to the store on Saturday. Am going.
continuous future? No, continuous present?
Yes, exactly. That's confusing. But remember the continuous future, all of your future tenses, whether it's the simple tenses, the continuous tenses, or next week's topic, the perfect continuous tenses. When you're dealing with the future, your verb will always start with the word will. So you can take that to the bank.
Okay.
Right? All of your future tenses always begin with the word will.
Okay.
Okay. But you're right. Am going. It's something that we're projecting is going to happen in the future. But as of the present moment, this is what we're planning. Good job. Okay. And I got rid of our little dancing bee because he was annoying me. Let's go on to the next one. Okay. Which of the following sentences does the best job expressing certainty about a future action?
A,
I will try. Let's see. Yep. Good job. Good job. I will try. All right. And that use of the verb try, I'm so proud of you because that can be a little confusing because will try. I'm not certain that I'm going to get that job, but I am certain that I will try. Right. And so you have to, I'm really proud of you because that's a tricky one. So our verb there is the future, simple future, will try. Let's look at B. What is the verb there?
well, it's possibility because it has could find. So
Yep. Could
future
find.
possibility.
Yep. Could find. Absolutely. And then we've got I tried with if. So that's a little complex sentence there. But what about C? I should look for a job tomorrow.
That's another possibility or uncertainty.
Yep.
But present, right? I should look.
Don't even think in terms of present.
Just possibility.
Possibility. That's exactly right. Good. Which of the following sentences uses a modal to indicate that the writer thinks Sarah has a responsibility to do something, but is not sure that it will be done? Uses a modal to indicate that the writer thinks Sarah has a responsibility to do something, but is not sure that it will be done.
Well, a modal, I think, is with the ing.
No, that's your present participle.
Okay, so I think it's A then. Should.
Yeah, should is one of your modals. Absolutely. But let's look at C. The verb here is trying with the adverb not that turns that verb on its head. The writer is very certain here that Sarah is not trying. Correct? And then B is the author is certain that Sarah is trying. And only A is an alternate reality. Sarah is not trying. It's not that she is trying or is not trying, which both indicate certainty, but that Sarah should try harder. So we have an alternate reality. It is not happening. And the modal is your clue there, should. And you're absolutely correct. A is the right answer. All right. I'll give you a moment to get warm. All right, so let's look at this sentence. Which of the following sentences indicates that something was ongoing in the past? That something was ongoing in the past when something else happened.
Okay, so B doesn't have anything else happening. So I would say C.
Yeah, and why did you think it was not A?
Because it's something else. You were doing something at the same time.
Exactly. That's exactly.
It's not
right.
something that happened.
And what is listening? Listening is one of those ing words that does indicate something ongoing. Is it a verb? Is listening a verb in the sentence?
No, because it doesn't have a helping verb.
That's exactly right. Our only verb is walked, right? So while listening to my radio is actually an adjective phrase. It's describing me, what I was doing as I walked to the store. Good, Joey. And you're absolutely correct with C. I was walking, in the process of walking. When something happened, I found $1 on the sidewalk. Good job. All right. So that's the end of our practice. And our next workshop is going to cover the perfect tenses and the perfect continuous tenses. And we're going to do a deeper dive into our modals and see how they indicate possibility in these last six tenses. That's hard to say, 6 tenses. Joey, do you have any questions about what we've covered in today's workshop with our simple and our continuous tenses?
No, no questions.
Okay, keep in mind, you can go back and watch this again. And meanwhile, I encourage you and our viewers to continue practicing with these simple and continuous verb tenses that we have already covered. Because I'm here to tell you right now that our next workshop on the perfect and the perfect continuous tenses, it's going to be longer and it's going to be more complicated. So if you establish a strong foundation on these first tenses, it's going to be easier for you to understand what we're going to be doing in our next workshop. And always remember, when choosing a verb, consider which verb tense best indicates the times and or the duration of times that you're writing about in that particular sentence. Another useful tip that I like to give our scholars who are learning how to use verb tenses better is when you're reading, take a few moments to look at the verbs and just ask yourself, okay, what verb is the writer using in this sentence? And is this a simple tense? Is this a continuous tense? Is this a perfect tense? Or is this a tense that I don't even recognize yet? This must be one of the ones we're going to talk about in the next workshop. So just beginning to pay attention to the verbs and the verb forms in the things that you're reading will help your mind become more accustomed to the many varieties of forms that verbs can take. And that will make you more aware of the own verbs that you're using in your sentences. All right. Joey, I want to thank you so much for your attention. I'm going to go ahead and I want to thank the viewers and make sure that you come back and see the rest of our workshops. And I'm going to stop the recording now. Thank you to everyone.